Stora College. Today is the 150th anniversary celebration. And we're inside the building, and this is John Brown's fort. It says in 1909 that the college purchased and moved John Brown's fort to the campus where it served as a symbol of freedom for students. It remained on the campus for over 50 years. Photographer Volkmar Wenzel captured the image of the structure and Stora College students in 1950. So this is John Brown's fort. And so John Brown says the structure was built in 1848 as the fire engine and guardhouse for the Harpers Ferry Armory. In 1859, John Brown and his followers occupied it during their unsuccessful raid. It was briefly on display at the 1891 World Columbian Exposition in Chicago. Then it remained dismantled for over 2 years. In 1895, Kate Field of Washington, D.C., and the local resident Alexander Murphy worked to get the fort rebuilt on a bluff 3 miles outside of Harpers Ferry before it moved to Stora College. The National Park Service acquired John Brown's fort in 1960 and moved it to the present location in the historical Lower Town in 1968. And there are more images upstairs. And so these are pictures of the homes of key officials of the Harpers Ferry Armory, once dominated the crest of Camp Hill. When the Civil War erupted, these houses often served as military headquarters for both Northern and Southern commanders. At the war's end, the buildings, damaged and deserted, awaited their destiny. And then this is Anthony Hall, which is the building that we are inside of right now. Stora College, 1887. Stora College operated for nearly 90 years, closing its doors in 1955. It opened in 1867. And today it's a training service for the National Park Service Mather Training Center. It says, after the war, various religious groups journeyed south to establish schools for former slaves. In 1865, through the efforts of the Free Will Baptist Home Mission and with funds from John Storer of Stamford, Maine, Stora College was born in the abandoned Armory Paymaster's house. As the school grew, it occupied other buildings, including this one, the south wing of which was once the home of the Armory Superintendent and Stonewall Jackson's headquarters. And then over here, pioneers for civil rights. So in 1906, the Niagara Movement, an early civil rights organization, held their second annual meeting at Stora College in Harpers Ferry, West Virginia. Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois, spokesman for the group, said it was one of the greatest meetings with American Negroes ever held. In a manifesto to the American people written by Dr. Du Bois, it outlined in detail their demands: full manhood suffrage, the end of discrimination in public accommodations, equal justice, social equality, and the elimination of separate but equal education. In 1909, a group of distinguished American leaders answered the summons, and with most of the founders of the Niagara Movement, formed a new organization, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, NAACP. The Niagara Movement ceased in 1911 because of this new organization. And so we're going to go in this room. Sorry. Going to go in this room here. And so this is Reverend Nathaniel C. Brackett, founder and first principal of Stora College from 1867 to 1898. And then on this wall, we have the shining stars of Stora College. The first one is Don Redman. He was born July 29, 1900, in Piedmont, West Virginia, to a music teacher and a vocalist. Don Matthew Redman was destined to make music. By the time he was 12, Redman played the trumpet and all wind instruments. 8 years later, he graduated from Storer College with a music degree and soon joined Billy Page's Broadway Syncopators. The talented young musician caught the ear of a well-known band leader, Fletcher Henderson, and soon joined Henderson's orchestra, not only writing the band's arrangements, but also playing the clarinet and saxophone. Because of Redman's innovative arrangements, the group quickly became the most prominent black jazz orchestra in the country. In 1927, as music director for McKinney's Cotton Pickers, Don Redman's arrangements became more elaborate, especially in harmony and rhythm. 4 years later, he formed his own band, the Don Redman Orchestra, and became a fixture in Harlem at Connie's Inn. In 1946, Redman formed an all-star band, and they became the first African-American jazz orchestra to tour Europe after World War II. Following a brief run on television in 1949, Redman became music director for Pearl Bailey and acted with her in the play House of Flowers. In his later years, his master jazz arranger and innovator rarely performed in public, preferring to work on several extended compositions that have never been publicly performed. Until his death, November of 1964, Don Redman never stopped making music. Oh, thank you for the hearts. Thanks for joining. So we are at Storer College, and we are talking about the famous people who attended Storer College. The next one is John Robert Clifford. He was born in Williamsport, Virginia, now West Virginia. In 1848, John Robert, or J.R. Clifford, faced a world where slavery was the law of the land. Although he was born free, freedom for African Americans in Clifford's youth had little meaning. Although free of slavery's irons, casting off the chains of racism became his life's work. At age 17, Clifford joined the 13th Regiment, United States Artillery. After his discharge, the young corporal enrolled in Storer College, where he received the education and personal encouragement he needed to succeed. Upon graduation in 1875, John Robert Clifford accepted a teaching position at the summer school in Martinsburg, West Virginia. He became principal of the school and instilled in his students the same sense of integrity that he received at Storer. In 1882, he established the Pioneer Press, the first black newspaper in the state of West Virginia. 5 years later, he took another step in the fight for justice when he became the first African American to pass the West Virginia bar exam. Clifford fought relentlessly for equal justice, and as a leading member of the Niagara Movement, an early national civil rights organization, he demanded full civil and social rights for African Americans. Until his death in 1933, John Robert Clifford was determined to hold America accountable for its promise of freedom and equality. And the next person is Coralie Franklin Cook. Coralie Franklin Cook, born in Lexington, Virginia. At the outbreak of the Civil War, Coralie Franklin's future looked bleak. As an African American, she was, in the eyes of the federal court, a non-entity and had no rights. She was also a female. In the late 19th century, all women, regardless of color, were regarded as inferior. But armed with an inner strength and a will to succeed, Coralie Franklin entered Storer College in 1872. She graduated from Storer College Normal Department in 1874 and received her teaching diploma from the Storer Academic Department in 1880. From 1882 to 1893, Coralie Franklin served as an elocution teacher and one of Storer's earliest black female educators, teaching those wishing to drink from what she called Storer's fountain of knowledge. She later became one of the college's first female trustees. She married George William Cook, a professor at Howard University in Washington, D.C., and joined the faculty there. At Howard, she created an art form out of the intensive study of public speaking, with the department ultimately becoming the College of Theater Arts. Although her teaching career ended in the early 1900s, Coralie Franklin Cook's determination to fight for what was rightfully hers, not only for her race but also for her gender, did not. Active in civil and women's rights, educational and community organizations until her death in 1942, she had, in the words of the Storer College catalog, become qualified for the performance of the great work of life. Joseph Jeffrey Walters. Oh, unfortunately, there's no photo for him. Born in Liberia as a member of the Vi Nation, VAI, circa 1860, Joseph Jeffrey Walters would strive to better not only his life but the lives of his nation's female population. In 1883, after studying at St. John's Episcopal Mission under Bishop Clinton Pinnock, Walters traveled to the United States, where he enrolled in Storer College. For the next 5 years, the young African, in the words of the first college catalog, studied hard to become qualified for the performance of great work of life. Excuse me. Walters graduated from Storer College in 1885, and 5 years later, he wrote his only novel, Gunye Pa, a story of an African princess, the first book of long fiction by an African to be published in English. The novel tells the story of a young woman of the Vi people betrothed as a child to a much older, polygamous man who flees her home rather than be forced into marriage. Walter's book has been called a remarkably complex work, embracing both Christian beliefs and a deep pride in his African heritage. Walters continued his education at Oberlin College, although ties remain strong to his West Virginia alma mater. I've been hearing very good reports from time to time of Storer and its work. Such intelligence always makes me joyful. Upon completion of a bachelor's degree in 1892, Walters returned to Liberia due to worsening health conditions. 2 years later, while teaching at the Cape Mount Mission, Joseph Jeffrey Walters died at the age of 34. Oh, another one. Another African. This one is Nigerian. Benjamin Nnamadi Azikiwe. Born on November 16, 1904, in the British colony of Nigeria, Benjamin Nnamadi Azikiwe had an insatiable quest for knowledge and a passion for books. Among his favorite authors were W.E.B. Du Bois, and other civil rights leader in the United States. Greatly influenced by these African Americans, Azikiwe traveled to the United States in search of a golden fleece and the opportunity for self-realization. Instead, the young dreamer found a country with tremendous potential marred by racial discrimination and limited opportunities for blacks. Determined to succeed despite the obstacles, Azikiwe enrolled at Storer College, Harpers Ferry, West Virginia in 1925. His time at the college was filled with academic and athletic achievements. After graduation in 1927, Azikiwe left Storer, and although penniless, homesick, and in danger of expulsion by immigration officials, he managed to continue his education. Azikiwe finally returned to Africa in 1934, determined to be a great influence in the future of his homeland and pursue the dream of an independent and democratic Nigeria. The country achieved its independence in 1960, and 3 years later, Benjamin Nnamadi Azikiwe became Nigeria's first president. That is amazing. Wow. Okay, so I'm going to have to share that. This is the Storer College 1920 It looks like football team. That's their football team. In these colors you believe, then put this emblem on your sleeve. And then look at how tiny these hats were. Stewart College jacket and pennant. Stewart College sweater. And there's another little beanie hat. And this is Dr. Henry Temple McDonald, Principal, President, Instructor of Stewart College from 1898 to 1994, instrumental in the establishment of Harpers Ferry National Monument. Wow. And I guess these are books. The poetical works of Thomas Campbell. This is Mrs. Elizabeth Mosher McDonald, faculty member of Stewart College. She taught French and German, 1901 to 1944. And then this is Deacon Lewis W. Anthony, Stewart College trustee, donor and namesake of Anthony Hall. So the building we're standing in is named after him. And then resident members, Coralie Franklin Cook, resident church member, 1896. So let me see if I can zoom in. Let's do it this way. There's no shadow. There's her name right there. So that's her name. So that's a Curtis Free Will Baptist Church ledger. So she was a member of the church up the street. Uncle Tom Lovett, Aunt Etta Lovett, Uncle John Lovett, Miss C. Franklin, later Mrs. Cook, Dr. N.C. Brackett, Mrs. Brackett, Mrs. Lighton, John C. Newman, Jared M. Arton. Earlier, Stewart College teacher and student photo with the names of family and friends identified, including Coralie Franklin Cook, center row fourth. Center row 4. Center row number 4. Oh, number 4. Okay, where is she, number 4? There's 5, 6, 7. Where is 4 at? 1, 2, 3. Oh, there she is. There's 4. That's Coralie right there. So there she is. And this is Stewart College, Harpers Ferry. It looks like a postcard or something from Stewart College. And then this is from the president of Nigeria. The first president of Nigeria who attended Stewart College, Nnamadi Azikiwe. It says, youth, we have tomorrow bright before us like a flame. Yesterday, a night gone, a mighty one thing, a sundown name, and down today, broad arch above the road we came, we marched. Langston Hughes, for the students of Stewart College. Wow. February 22nd, 1931. So Azikiwe and poet Langston Hughes became friends when they attended Lincoln University together in the late 1920s. In 1931, Hughes wrote this copy of Youth for Stewart students. That is phenomenal. From student to soldier, college students in World War I. So that's a World War I German helmet. The helmet was donated to the park by a relative of Storer College President Harry T. McDonald. It was mailed to McDonald from a former Storer College Private R.G. Green, 807 Pioneer Infantry. The name of a German soldier appears to have been written on the side of the helmet. McDonald added it to the college museum located inside the John Brown Fort. Students sent letters and pictures to their beloved president, and he maintained a scrapbook to record the students who sacrificed for their country. And then this one here, this is Finley Davis, Storer College, famous baseball and tennis player, also good in swimming and jumping, 1907 to 1908. So he's another famous student. And this is first row Tomlinson P. Taylor, President McDonald, McGee, Scory, Craig, Scott, first B. Captain, Fisher, Howard, King, Tinley, Green, Wheaton, Crawford, Yarborough, Moset, Morris. Oh, thanks for sharing and inviting Miss here, Doctor. I so appreciate you. Thank you. And then this is a group photo of 1911 Storer College baseball team in uniform on the lawn of campus, showing the student Green, who we believe mailed the helmet to McDonald. And which one is Green? Okay. So that's what that is. So that's the helmet. And I'm going to show you guys over here on the other side of the room. So this is Storer College, 1867 to 1955, Storer College. Okay, so this is Dr. William A. Sanders, faculty member of Storer College, Bible, Mathematics, and Science, 1907 to 1944. That's what he taught. And this looks like George Washington. In memory of Mrs. Inez Sanders, the class of 1908. So that's a gift. This is Dr. Richard I. McKinney, president of Storer College, 1944 to 1950. And then these are pictures from the campus of Storer College. That's the original main entrance. Yes, it is history. It is history, very historical. It's amazing the history at this college. From its beginning in the Lockwood House, the Storer campus soon grew to include numerous buildings on Camp Hill. School catalogs promoted the scenic setting of the campus and its historic connection with the famous John Brown raid and a Christian family atmosphere. That's the Soldier's Gate and Alumni fence. This is a couple at Jefferson Rock. In 1945, the college released plans for renovating and expanding the campus. 10 years later, the passage of integration laws opened many doors to African American students seeking an education. This, plus increasing financial problems, forced Storer College to close its doors in 1955. So this is a picture of John Brown's Fort and New Lincoln Hall in 1924. John Brown's Fort was actually on the campus. This is football practice, 1940. And then this is a map. This is Curtis Free Will Baptist Church, built in 1898. This is a view of the Gap. This is Anthony Hall, 1940. New Lincoln Hall, renamed Brackett Hall, built 1938. This is Cook Hall, built 1938. And this is another map of the school. Grandview Elementary School. And this is, these are classes here at Storer College. Welcome your first day on Periscope. These are classes that were held. So this is the gardening class, 1907. Sewing and dressmaking class, 1907. Carpentry class, 1907. Cooking class, 1907. Chemistry lab, 1907. No, 1939. Chemistry class. The chapel in Anthony Hall, 1898. Biology laboratory, 1939. Biology laboratory, 1939. Hi from Russia. Physics laboratory, 1940. So that's the physics laboratory, 1940. Chemistry laboratory, 1940. Entomology laboratory, 1940. And then they offered physics and biology. Those are the advantages for it. And now this is graduation. That's a diploma from Storer College, graduation there. So this is the class of 1910. What year is this diploma? Oh, the diploma is 1915. That's the class of 1909. This is Charles Willis, class of 1935. Class of 1934. Effie Goins, class of 1934. Year unknown is that one. 1930s graduating class. (1947). That's 1950. The senior class of Storer College invites you to its commencement exercises. This is 1913 announcement. '64th commencement exercises, Monday morning, June 2nd, Wednesday, 1941. Graduating class and announcement. That's 1941. And then these are sports at Storer College. So that's the football, homecoming game. That's a 1940 poster. This is homecoming court, 1953. Basketball at Storer College. Football squad, 1923 to 1924. Women's basketball team, 1920. Baseball, 1909. This is the basketball team, 1940. Basketball, 1920. Football team, 1908. And then this is music. So this is the college choir. And college band, 1908. Poster for 1930 Christmas cantata. Annual pop concert, Beethoven Choral Society, College Orchestra Store, College, Harpers Ferry, West Virginia, Friday, February the 4th, 1938. That's a choral group, 1921. Beethoven Choral Group, 1940. College Band, 1913. That's the College Choir, 1905. John Redman Jazz Heritage Award recipients: Benny Powell, Joe Wilder, Sonny Cohn, Snooky Young, Cleve Eaton, Clark Terry, Vince Prudence, Frank West, Jimmy Heath, Hank Jones, Curtis Fuller, John Handy, Jimmy Cobb, Jimmy Merritt, Charlie Persip, Phil Woods, Harold McByrne, Mickey Roker, Larry Ridley, Larry Willis, Louis Donaldson, Ben Tucker, Buster Cooper, Eddie Gomez, Billy Harper, Cecil McBee. How's this still? Oh, and they're going to the 2015 George Cables, Dr. Eddie Henderson, Albert Tootie Heath, Charles McPherson, Barry Harrods, Rufus Reed. Okay, so John Redman Jazz Heritage Award recipients whose work in music and education illuminate the spirit of Don Redman, class of 1920, Storer College. And Don Redman Heritage Award in recognition of musicianship, humanity, and dignity as an asset to jazz in the tradition of Don Redman, and whose work in music and education illuminate the spirit of Don Redman. Award presented by Don Redman Society, Piedmont, West Virginia, Jefferson County, West Virginia NAACP, and Harpers Ferry Historical Association. That's interesting. They're still doing that in his name. So this is the celebration that's going on today. They had music, entertainment, speakers. So that concludes the tour of Storer College. So I'm going to close out, you guys. Thanks for joining.